Hello everybody and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're doing a box office preview for this upcoming weekend, which sees James Gunn's Superman finally take off, as all of the headlines are going to be, of course, saying, because we all know these box office media types love their puns in their headlines. And Tony, good old Tony over at Deadline, is indeed speaking about how it has opened up to a preview of $22 million, and then he goes ahead and tries to compare it to other films, and of course, those comparisons are not really necessarily fair. In fact, one of them he puts up against this movie was a film that came out at a time when they only had 10 p.m. preview showings, whereas this one had the Amazon release on Wednesday for Amazon Prime members, and then, of course, had the Thursday premiere yesterday with showtimes, I think, as early as almost 2 or 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And so very much an advantage going on now on for Superman, not to mention it's got a lot of the premium format screens this weekend. A lot of people have been obsessed with the fact that I didn't talk about that with Jurassic World last weekend, but it doesn't really matter all that much because my coverage of that film would still be the same, which was that it was the worst opening of that franchise. And again, that doesn't mean the film is failing. That doesn't mean that the film is not going to make money back. It just is a statement of fact, looking at the numbers. And again, using apples-to-apples comparisons, looking at ticket sales, adjustments for inflation, things like that. And that's, of course, something that Tony just never does over at Deadline. And, of course, he's going to try to throw in a Barbie into this because he's really just trying to create this perception. Now, personally, I've seen the movie, and it honestly didn't really wow me all that much. And, in fact, I think right now, if you want the best kind of coverage of what people are actually feeling, actual fans, movie people, right? Not just your hardcore fans, but also your normie audiences. I think Criticlist is actually really the best place for it. It's not just because of the score being what it is, but because you're really seeing this battle happening within the comment section and within the reviews themselves, where some people are really hating this movie, some people are really loving this movie. I think that there's a dynamic there. This reminds me a lot, interestingly enough, of Zack Snyder. If you remember back when the Snyderverse came out, you had your hardcore fans that loved it, thought everything was amazing with it, and then you had the normies, and then you had those that just hated it, right? And I think that for this movie, what you're finding is a very similar dynamic, but I think also what you're seeing, and this is something that I've noticed myself, I gave this film a 45% decent score. It's not a terrible movie, but at the same time, it's such a tonal mess where you don't know whether to take it seriously or to laugh, and there's moments actually in the movie that are presented as being almost dramatic, but people are laughing at them because there was jokes set up right before or right after. And so I think that this definitely creates a bit of a mess. I don't think James Gunn was the right person for this specific movie, right? I think that he probably could have done a Justice Gang movie, for instance. I think that Justice Gang would have actually done pretty well, right? As an individual movie with those same actors and with that being much more of a Guardians type feel. For a film called Superman, where he's supposed to be the focal point of the movie and is supposed to be established, and especially supposed to establish a future for this franchise, this universe going forward, right? This is kind of supposed to be almost the Iron Man of the new DCU, DECEU, whatever the world's being called these days. But it really just doesn't do that, right? I think even if you're honest, right? If you're not just a James Gunn shill like we've seen happen before with Zack Snyder. Again, I'm not on the Snyderverse side. I'm also not on the James Gunn side. I'm just someone I want a good movie. I want a film that's going to entertain me. And hey, a lot of people are indeed getting entertained by this movie, but I think a lot more people are kind of like, it's fine. And that's kind of where I am. And that's why this audience score of a 51% decent rating, I think, is actually pretty darn on the nose. Now, my review of the film I posted up over on there says this movie is a total mess. It honestly seems like the only people fully praising this film are James Gunn fanboys. And I'm not trying to say if you like this movie that automatically you're a fanboy, right? I just want to make that very clear, right? I even say that in the review. But the ones who are really going to bat for the film and even attacking anyone that's being critical of it, you're acting just like the Snyder Bros did, right? Anyone who criticized the Snyder films, they got attacked, they got villainized, they got, whatever it was. And I think the same thing is happening for this movie. I think the quality of this film is definitely a lot higher than anything Snyder has ever done, but that is also not saying a whole lot, especially if this is, again, if we're going under the premise that, one, this is a Superman movie that's supposed to be focusing on him and a serious story about him and where he is in this world and setting him up for the future. And in addition to that, secondly, if this is supposed to be a film setting up your entire universe, it doesn't work. It doesn't actually do that, right? It really doesn't accomplish that in any real way, at least, again, narratively speaking. People can still enjoy the movie, but you can't deny that there is a narrative mess going on. I say there are good things, mainly the acting for sure, but if you cannot rock the story and set up something interesting and exciting, which is one of the main points of the film you need to accomplish, then this isn't it. Mr. Terrific is the best part of the movie. I still hold to that. Nicholas Hoult gives a great performance as Luther. Still agree to that. What this movie honestly needed was less James Gunn. He has proven to be the wrong person to be leading not only this DC venture with the movie, but also just in general with the DC universe. And so if this is kind of what the films are going to be like going forward, I think we're going to see law of diminishing returns. And again, I think if he had let someone else direct it, he could still be the producer, he could even be the writer on the movie, but had someone else with a, I guess, more serious vision. Not that it had to be hyper serious, but at least tonally consistent, right? Let the serious moments be serious, let the comedic moments be comedic, and with a movie like this, probably should be more towards the serious side than anything else. I think it would have ended up a lot better. That being said, again, if you go to sites like Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm sure everyone in the comment section who's going to see the headline and see the title of the video and just going to be like, I'm a keyboard warrior, and I'm going to say Rotten Tomatoes, Rotten Tomatoes. We all know Rotten Tomatoes is a broken system, right? They've literally edited their system to help movies, to help studios. This is something that we know. So it's a corrupt system, meaning it really can't be trusted. And that's why Criticless is great, because it's just real people. And you can argue individual persons are trying to, either write up the score or put down the score. But what's great about Criticless is that it's a little bit more protected from that typical type of trollery, because people are behind a username and people have to basically go through that sign up process just to be able to get on there. And so you really don't see that happen with a lot of the movies on here, which is really great. In fact, 90 reviews for a movie is actually towards the higher end. I have not seen a modern film get that, but guess what? The fact that 90 people have already reviewed this movie and it just officially came out today tells me a lot about the box office, right? So even though I'm not a fan of this movie and I don't think it's setting things up for the future, $22 million in previews is pretty good. Now, again, I'm not going to go as far as Tony because he's ignoring a lot of important factors, but let's just go into what some of the projections were going into this weekend. So first, we start with Box Office Theory. So he thinks the film, right, he had been, remember, saying 130 to 150-ish million dollars. Like, he had this huge range, right? He thought this film was going to be a massive success with 170 on the high end. Look how much further down that has gone. Now that's down to 125 to 150. Now, again, it's still a lot higher than the $100 million being projected by the mainstream media. And of course, with these previews, they're now projecting it to be a little bit higher than that. Still, the fact remains that, again, someone who was so bullish on the projections of this movie, now that actual data has come in, we're starting to see, it may not be as big as they are all saying. So $135.3 million, again, that's a pretty good opening weekend, but it also doesn't really hold a candle to the other films that have come out in the franchise. And so for those wondering, right, where does this film stand up if it opens to $135 million domestic? So again, we go over to thenumbers.com, we adjust for inflation because that is a fair way to compare it. You can do ticket sales, but it's going to tell you almost the same exact story. And if we look at the first Sunday, this has the first full weekend for these movies. Man of Steel, Zack Snyder's Man of Steel made 179. Batman v Superman made 217. The Batman made 143. So it might actually get close to the Batman based on the current projections. It could do better, and it very well might. $118 million for Justice League. That's right. That's Joss Whedon's Justice League, $118 million. So it's probably going to beat that. And then Superman Returns, even that film from 2006, when you adjust for inflation, was $146 million. So we're talking about a movie that's not going to be really, again, they're saying setting records for James Gunn movies. It's like, okay, that doesn't really say a whole lot. And I don't buy that either, right? Because they're clearly not adjusting for inflation. But just looking at DC Universe movies, films that people are probably going to compare it to, this really isn't so far looking to be all that special. And again, this does not mean the film is not going to be a big hit, that the film's not going to make a lot of money. But I think a lot of people have said this film has to make more than The Batman. Well, guess what? The standard is set at $829 million globally. And the fact that right now the earliest projections globally with internationals is that the film's going to do over $200 million. Okay, that may not actually do it. Again, we'll have to wait and see. Word of mouth on this is mostly good, right? Obviously, there are people who are praising this movie. The question is, are the normies going to show up to it? Is the foot traffic, the walk-up traffic going to show up for it? You very well could see that obviously happen. And also, what role is the Jurassic World movie going to play in? Because even though that film is complete trash, people still enjoy that movie as well. People are going to bat for that film in the comment section too. Is it going to take any audience away? It's really hard to say at this point in time. I would just pointing out the facts here, that the film is doing well, but it's not doing like, oh man, it's the next coming of superhero movies. It's not doing that level, at least right now. Again, obviously all this could change once the Friday and Saturday numbers come in. But he again goes on to think that 23.9 million was his projection for Thursday and the Wednesday. Came in beneath that, all right? So just to give you an idea. So right now it's tracking beneath where Box Office Theory had his initial projections. But 135, again, sounds realistic to me, but we'll have to wait and see. Jurassic World Rebirth is expected to have a 59% drop. That is way too generous. I really wish people weren't going to see that movie. It's just, again, it's just an awful film. I give it a 25% bogus score, and even that might be too high. F1 continues to hold at 46%. How to Train Your Dragon live action at 38%. Going over to Box Office Pro, they're, again, being a little bit more tame. 115, 135, that, again, sounds right to me as well. So they're higher than what the industry experts, so-called experts, were saying, but also not as bullish as what Box Office Theory was saying. And then Box Office Report has it at 123. Very similar story there. So again, where is this film going to actually end up? I think 115, 130 sounds realistic. You could see, right, those hardcore fans that are going to see the film, that are loving this movie, seeing the film multiple times. Again, that is happening, and so that very well could front load this weekend, but that's the big question. How much of this weekend is going to be front loaded, and then how much of next weekend's drops off? Because if you're just having this huge surge of James Gunn fans and of mega fans going out this weekend, but then they don't go out next weekend, and again, there's not going to be much competition necessarily, who's to say? So again, we'll really be tracking this movie's opening weekend here. If it's able to do $300 million globally in its opening, it's going to be in a very good position, right? For a budget of around, again, they're reporting $225 million. I think that's a load of bunk. Basically, you would have to say, oh yeah, they lied on their tax form, which said that it cost around $360 million. That's what you'd have to be saying. If you're saying, oh, that's just a number they put on there. Oh yeah, that's just, when we do our taxes, we just, put a number on there, right? You usually have to at least ballpark it. So 360 would have to be the most realistic take. Now that's, again, before your incentives. Now they're saying with incentives, it all went all the way down to 225. I don't know how you get there with what's being offered in Ohio and other places. So I've heard others mention 255 to 300-ish. That sounds a bit more realistic to me, but that's still a lot of money that you have to make up, right? Even at 255 million, your break even is around 765 million. So we're talking about a break even of at least 700 and upwards of 900 to $1 billion just to break even. If again, the budget is a lot higher than what is being indicated, which absolutely could be the case. Not to mention, this is assuming a marketing budget of your typical spend. There are some who are saying the marketing budget's actually closer to $200 million. Well, if that's the case, if you are going to even give that lower number, right? Let's say 225 is the number that you want to give, but the marketing is a lot higher. Okay, let's see how that plays out. 1, 2, 3. Oh boy, right? You see that definitely balloons the total cost quite a bit, and that would also have to include and also would increase. Sorry about that. Would increase that break-even point as well. And so we're going to have to wait and see. And again, it's not doing it on the chart because it's based off of budget, not on marketing. But again, not really looking good as far as long-term success, as far as long-term profit, just from the theatrical release as of right now. And as again, people oftentimes kind of overlook the fact that I'm saying, well, hey, I'm just looking at the numbers as they are at this very moment, and obviously a lot of these things can change going forward. But going back to the chart, we obviously love charts here on OMB Reviews. It's already made those $22.5 million domestically. Jurassic World Rebirth is almost at $400 million globally. It very well could break even this weekend if the budget, of course, is correctly being reported there. F1 has a massive budget, so it's not likely to break even as of this weekend, but it's doing well enough to where it's a big win for Apple for sure in the way that they sold the film and the marketing rights. We all know Megan 2.0 has just fallen off the charts. 28 years later has also fallen off quite a bit, amongst many others on here. How to Train Your Dragon still doing very well. It's not going to make $1 billion, but it's still going. And Lilo and Stitch, again, I think will get a little bit closer to $1 billion. We're going to be in the 980s this weekend. The question is really how high does that actually go? But all the story, all the focus is on Superman. So have you seen the movie? Do you think the film is good or not? Make sure you join Criticless and let your voice be heard. If you don't like this score, guess what? You can go and put your actual review. Again, I'm of the mindset where those that are putting it as a heinous movie are a bit ridiculous. Those putting it as a most excellent or even a rad film, also a bit ridiculous depending on their positions there. If it's just subjective experience, I can understand giving it a rad score, maybe in a low, most excellent. But we have to admit there are definitely some big story issues here. Tonally, again, a big mess. This is just not the movie that James Gunn should have done in this franchise. And I don't really think it's off to that start. People can say, oh, you're biased towards James Gunn anyway. It's like, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, but then the shit got old really quickly in Volumes 2 and 3. 3 was better than 2, but again, it was kind of like a what have you done for me lately type of situation. And I think James Gunn, unfortunately, in the marketing and all the lead up, has just made himself the center of attention and the center of the overall story. And when you make yourself the overall center of the story, and then you actually watch the movie and you see, oh, the actual script itself is basically his life story. It's about his own cancellation in a certain way, right? He has this whole cancel culture mindset being put into the actual story of the movie, and you can see his own commentary on that. Okay, it's a little bit too close to it. I think he was a little too close to the story, and I think it impacted his overall focus. And so, hey, you obviously are going to have your comments. You're going to probably disagree with me. Again, as I said, a lot of people are enjoying it. 22 million is nothing to snuff at, but we do have to have that in context. And as of right now, it's good. It's not the best. And again, once the full weekend numbers come in, we'll see how close does it get to original Man of Steel, adjusted for inflation. I'll try to get a ticket sales chart as well. It is the wifey's birthday. So happy birthday, of course, to wifey. She doesn't watch my videos, but happy birthday to her. And unfortunately, I also pulled my back earlier because that's what happens when you're getting a little bit older. So that has been my day, which is why this video is coming in late. But let me know your thoughts on this and anything else I mentioned in the comment section down below. If you like this video, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed Friday. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illick and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribe Star people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.